Saturn again, and this is going to be a class on Florentine. Now, Florentine is essentially using two weapons, okay? Example here is sword and sword. Now, you can actually use other weapons, such as a sword and dagger, or if you have a stick, you can use it as a madu, which means you've got two thrusting tips only, and you can use it as a blocking device and then a striking device, top and bottom, okay? For right now, we're going to just stick mainly with two sword. Now, you either like Florentine or you don't like Florentine. There's pretty much no real middle ground. The biggest turn off on Florentine is striking with your offhand, okay? It's going to be common for everyone because it's not a normal thing. We've used our bodies enough that if we're using our dominant hand, for me it's the right, we are always accustomed to the heavy strikes. For the left hand, we're not used to that. It's more of a detail-oriented side than a strong-sided side. So you have to work on that. How do you work on that, you might say? It's very simple. I tell everyone the same thing every time. Oh, you want to learn Florentine? Okay, this is what you need to do. Instead of having two swords right away, you get rid of one sword, and the best is to use a small buckler or a very small strap shield, and you fight off-handed, so my left side instead of my right side, for at least 3 months. Okay, you got to get the shots in the form and your body dynamics working on your off side. So you have to learn to step and strike. One of the things you're going to find out very quickly is it doesn't feel natural. Of course not, because it's your non-dominant side. Another thing you're going to find out is you might start getting the form right, but you still can't hit correctly. Well, how do you fix that? You go and you try different length swords. Sometimes you might need to go a little bit further. Most people usually go a little bit shorter. Therefore, they're not trying to angle something in that doesn't work. So, in the first class, I talked about how essentially you get your arm, your eyesight, and the point that you want to strike as your point of focus. When you're fighting offhand right away, that is very important. Because you need to learn, hey, I'm going like this is great, but why am I striking further down? Well, that's because your body is telling you you need a shorter sword so you can do it. Don't go and chop off your sword. Oh, I'm going to take off 9 inches. No. Get a sword that you've used before that's pretty much not very good anymore, and then slowly start cutting it down an inch at a time. And then start stepping and moving. And then finally you're like, okay, this one feels much better. Okay? There's nothing wrong with taking your time and getting your form down. But for 3 months, you got to learn to block with your strong side and strike with your off side. The other thing you need to learn, like I said, when most left-handed fighters fight in a V pattern. So instead of just stepping in and throwing, you actually need to step to the side. That is going to open up your shots a lot more. One of the harder things, the hardest thing to try and do is actually learn a wrap on your offside. So you can go practice and you're like this and you're like, it's all about timing. It's all about finally getting that right feel where it's like, hey, this is it. And then you just need to practice that. But before you do that, just go back to the basic forms again. Step, rotate, and throw. It's going to take some time. It's going to feel really weird. Don't give up on it. Okay? Now, once you finally get used to it, you now need to do what's known as, what's the best way to put it? Same shot, different side. Okay? So what that means is you need to pretend to, someone throws a shot, you need to block and strike. Then go block and strike on the opposite side. Same shot, different side. So you can work that on a Pell to begin with, and that's great. So you go block, strike, block, strike. Even if it's going down, block, strike, block, strike. Okay? So it's going to be interesting because you're like, oh, I'm moving first. Hey, that's what you're supposed to do. So you're going to do an intentional block every single time and then strike. The problem that comes into play is sometimes people step and turn and then they don't do anything with their hips except only strike. So you have to make sure that you're doing a step and then strike with a hip. All right? Don't break it down into step, hip, and then strike. It's step, hip, strike. Okay? Some people will do it naturally, some people will, I don't really understand what's going on here. It's essentially the same issues that come into play. A lot of times when people are in sword and shield, okay, and then what they do is they throw a shot first and then they step. What that does is it stops your momentum and you're fighting strength. So you need to always make sure you step and then continue on with the strike. So it is intentionally doing a block first. Now you might be thinking, well, why do I want to do that? Shouldn't it be natural? Actually, sometimes it's not, because you might be going, all right, I'm going to be doing this, and all of a sudden, oh crap, he's doing something else. And then you stop your movement, and then you have nothing, because your entire movement and momentum through the step to the landing of the shot has changed. So you need to make sure you essentially go block, strike, block, strike. Work on a Pell, do some slow work with someone. You need to understand now you're using two swords, okay? Now there's different things you can do. You can have thrusting tips on both, thrusting tips on one. It varies. I initially like to fight inverted Florentine. A lot of people hate it because they're saying that's not real Florentine. It is, and I like it because essentially what I'm doing is I am concentrating this mainly as a blocking device, so I can pretty much straight go back to sword and shield techniques. Also, it's a great way to keep distance by having a thrusting tip here and stopping movement. Okay? Now, if I get them on their knees, I now go back to normal, and then I start doing whatever combination that gets an opening. Now, after that, you need to work on same side, same shot. Like I said, before it's opposite side, throw or block, throw opposite side. Now what you want to do is you want to practice striking and then striking on the same side. Striking and striking. Now, that's going to be interesting because you're stepping with one, and now how are you generating the force? Like I said, strike and then continue with the hip for the second one, okay? It's going to take some time. You're going to feel kind of weird about it. And sometimes you might need to go strike and then do a stutter step and do a strike again. So, opposite sides, same sides. Opposite sides, same sides. And you're going to realize, because now this is how you do combinations. So you went from single shot to combinations. Now, how do the combinations work along with the movement? Which is pretty much what I'm instructing right there. So that's pretty much the body dynamics. When you want us to do it, you want to do opposite or same to begin with. All right. After a while, you're going to see people that are not very familiar with it. What they'll do is they'll throw one shot and then they just keep the sword there, or they keep it as a blocking device only, and they go straight back to single sword style. Okay? You always need to be aware that you have a second sword. That is why you want to get it into muscle memory, where you're doing this and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, it becomes natural, I have that shot. Okay? Because what you also want to do is, say for example, someone is throwing a shot. Person's throwing a shot over here. You can take the sword and block it, and then immediately strike, instead of just going straight for a strike. You can throw for a strike, and then immediately block, and then go for a counter. So, strike, block, strike. You need to come up with different combinations that you want to try. I tell everyone, you know what's really easy? Get a 3x5 card. Okay? Right on the 3x5 card, I want to do these combinations. Or I want to work on a head strike. Or a block, arm strike. Or block, head strike. Or block, head. Now, these will always be different pertaining to different fighters that you're going to fight. But when you do it, you need to be thinking, what combinations can there be? And then see if you can throw it. And then once you throw it, you need to throw it multiple times before it becomes natural. Because a lot of times people just go, all right, this is it, and then all of a sudden, clutch time. Remember when I said that there's body conflict, there's also mental conflict. All right, I'm doing this, and then all of a sudden, oh, back to sword and shield stance, and I'm blocking only, striking only, doing linear and not V. It's because we are hardwired or muscle memoried into doing certain things. That's why you got to keep your options open, be aggressive, be very athletic, and do a lot of movement. Okay? Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about both the mental and the physical conflicts that come into play. Okay? What is the #1 conflict when someone is doing Florentine? The conflict is the middle. Why is the middle the conflict? Everything over here we do right side. Everything over here we do left side. In the middle, am I going to do it right? Am I going to do it left? All right, someone's throwing a shot straight in. Do I do both together? Do I always do right and left? If I do that, then I'm pretty much telegraphing how I move every single time. Do I always block and go left? So this is where the first shot on a Florentine person, if you can throw a shot straight in, they're going to have a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of stutter in their mind. Am I going to do right, left, right? I'd say about 50% of the time, you're going to get a good shot on a Florentiner straight down right away. Same thing on not just a shot, but also a thrust. All right? Now, for the head, if someone comes in, people pretty much automatically have a defensive mechanism for turning their head. Now, where is the conflict on a thrust? Stomach to chest level. At that point, when you're coming in here like this, we can easily do this. It's really hard to do that. So at which point, okay, I have to use the basket hilt to block, or I have to do a swinging movement. When you have to block in the chest area, you need to come up with your blocking, striking pattern. So someone comes in, all right, I'm going to always, if the thrust is coming in from the left side of my opponent, right side of me, I want to make sure that that angle is actually going to be coming in this way. It's easier, and we have a thing in the military, I call it left to left. Okay? One of the things is, if you get shot by an AK-47, shot at, the interesting thing is that it always shoots up and to the right. When people are shooting, they go ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and it goes up and it goes to the right on them. So what it is the shots are going to your left. So once the shots are going to your left, you run to the left side of them. So left to left. You get a less chance of getting hit. So if someone is striking this way, what you need to do is you need to block right to allow your body to shift so it's not flat. You also can block or assist in the blocking by your sword, to which point now they're extended and you can hit them in the arm or carry it up to the head. One of the things on that is if you're going for the arm, that means boom, the arm is wide open and the person is not throwing a shot at you. If you throw and the person's throwing a shot at you, you can throw up and use that part of your sword to block the second shot that that person's trying to throw at you. So as I say, right to right, left to left. Person's thrusting from the left, you go left. Person's thrusting from the right, you go right. Right to right, left to left. So, and for the head, most people will try and duck and move around it. Some people will use the basket hilt or part of the blade to try and deflect it so it doesn't come in straight. It's what works out best for you and how agile you are. Okay, so as we said, the major conflict on which one am I going to block with, it's always going to be right down the center. So if you're fighting a Florentiner, immediately just start throwing a couple shots straight down the center. As I said, it's going to cause conflict on what he's trying to block with, but it's also going to make them stop moving. Because they're like, oh. Because they now know you're striking. They have to figure it out, and for them to figure it out means that they have to stop moving. Mental and body dynamics conflict right there. So, thrusting, striking in the center will stop a lot of movement, and you got a good chance of getting a good killing strike right to begin with. Okay? Now, let's talk about the stance. Okay? This doesn't work out for everyone, but for the majority, again, if you are fighting two-stick, and they're roughly the same length, if you are right-handed, almost instinctively, you're going to go with your right leg forward. We're thinking, well, we always go blocking like this. That's right, because we're not thinking of it as a blocking device. Remember, it's a striking device. Striking devices, we can go right side very quickly, very fast. So if you see a Florentiner come out like this, right leg forward, and usually right sword forward, they're probably going to be right-handed. Like this, they're probably going to be left-handed. Left leg forward, left sword forward. Now, some people will also have their sword placements different. Some people will go have both up, one will have one up, one back, one, strangely enough, this is in an awkward position. But this is not an awkward position. So you're going to have people that will try and keep range with the thrusting tip out. Once they do that, you know, hey, they have their left leg forward, they're using it as a blocking device. So they're either going to go strike or thrust, thrust, and then they're going to leave it down there and try and control some aspect of blocking. And then they're going to do 1, 2 strikes like that. It's a very common thing. Now, if you can go, whether you got thrusting tips or not, and immediately go to a left-handed stance, most of them are going to think, oh, he's left-handed. So they're going to probably do a strike like this. What I like to do is this move. Put my left leg out, bring my right sword slightly back, left sword forward, so right sword back, left sword forward. They're thinking this is going to be a blocking, and as soon as they step, I step out in a V pattern, throw this sword over or up to block, and then I throw this sword across body. Why does that work? Because immediately, I say I'm fighting against a sword and shield person, they're like, okay, they're going to be throwing shots that they can see, that they can try and throw. Do they see a shot on my head usually? No, but they do see a leg or a hip. So if I step over to the side, I have now removed that leg from their equation. Step right, bring the left leg back as I throw. Now if they try and throw a shot high, or say they try and throw crossbody, so they're trying to throw towards the right side of my head, I'm already in position where I just step forward with my left, throw, rotate. Now, if you can actually see the movement, if that person was throwing a shot to my right side, they're going to overextend and expose their arm, back of their shoulder, head, back of the head to me. So they step forward, overextend. I have every shot I ever want to throw on. So the real good ones will usually not throw that shot as a first shot. Make sense? It's one of those things where once you start practicing on a Pell, you're going to start going, okay, what stance works best for me? And then once you get a stance, then you start throwing from that stance. If your throws are not very good, all right, change maybe some of the length of your sword a little bit to see if that helps. Or say, you know what, maybe I need to change my stance. And what people are going to start realizing is that they're coming straight in again and not stepping out. That is going to be the biggest key. If you can always remember to step out in the V pattern, you're going to have more shots than you actually realize. So, no matter what you're doing, block, strike. If a person's left-handed, right leg forward, and if they're pretending that that's what's going to happen, I'm going to go block down, strike that way, or strike towards the arm. Because they're leaning into the shot. I'm blocking, going for the head. Same way like this. I have full blocking capability of upper and lower. I'm using this as my primary, this as range. People who go and use little daggers, what they're going to do is they're going to be very aggressive. They're going to go wham, wham, and they might block some upper level with the dagger, and then try and do a lot of face strikes. Down on the shoulder, things like that, inside the shield area. Of course, Florentine against a pole arm is going to be different. Florentine against another Florentine is going to be different. Florentine against a 9-foot spear, just don't do it. First of all, if a spear is on their own, that's never a good sign, but very few spears are going to be on their own. All they need is someone to try and run up, and someone next to them will knock them off their feet before they even get to the person. So, practice. As I said, if you want to learn Florentine, shield right side, practice throwing shots. Do not go in, always go in a V pattern. Now, some of you might notice when you start throwing shots, if you're throwing a shot like this, you can see that your arm and knife hand are straight. But when you throw with the left hand, you're going to throw and you're going to realize, hey, wait a minute, that's not straight. That's fine. Don't let it be straight, because then you're stopping movement in the thing. Let it go. What you want to do is get close enough where your strike is actually going past. So for example, if you strike like this, and your arm and hand is rigid, if you let your wrist go a little bit more, you now have another 30 degrees of rotation. Now, some people want a solid grip for shots, and that's fine. You can go change the angle, get it in closer to get even more possibilities. I go and I try and throw slightly past. So like I said, when you do the V, you're not striking here, you're striking the shoulder. When you strike the shoulder, you're actually going past the shoulder. Instead of striking here, you're actually striking here. So instead of just a straight shot towards the face here, you're actually striking to the back, which allows a lot more range of shots that can be thrown. So learning to fight left-handed is a wonderful thing. It gives you a lot more visibility. It also opens your eyes to, why can I not block this? Oh, I get it now. I'm going like this, and yet the shot is going past. I need to either go more, or instead of just doing this, I need to rotate the hips more to get the same type of shot, or to block that type of shot. So, the thing that I love best about Florentine is it opens up so many more possibilities of combinations and shots. It also makes you develop by making you a better fighter, also by making you fight with your offhand, so now you're just not totally primarily driven with one aspect. It also gives you the understanding of, hey, so this is how this works. This is how this person fights. This person does this, so that means I need to do this. As I say, all of a sudden you're like, you know, and this, oh, I finally get it. We've all had those moments Where it's like, I just can't get the, oh, I got to do a little slight sidestep. That's it. Simple things like that. Now, I'm not going to get into the pole arms or Florentine against Florentine or anything like that, because like I said, it gets very detailed, okay? But I will end with one more picture. Remember, conflict right down the center. Whenever thrusting to the belly, you need to make sure you step left to left, right to right. Now, if you're fighting against a Florentine person, okay, some people be like, all right, I will wait until he moves. Okay, I'm going to strike first. Unless you are really fast and really accurate, a Florentiner wants you to move so they can block and strike the openings, okay? So, when you're attacking a Florentine person, okay, find out, like I said, if they're right-handed or left-handed, okay? Find out the position of the swords. And then from there, you go in the direction of what? Does anyone guess? I know you can't answer me, but I want you to think. I'm a sword and shield guy. I'm seeing someone, they're left-handed. What direction should I go? You always remember to go in the direction of their dominant sword. Okay? Because that's what they're going to be focusing on. This person is dominant here. They're going to be figuring out how to throw their dominant shot. So you need to go and cover that area. So, same thing. You always want to make sure that if you attack first, you want to make sure you attack the strongest weapon. Okay? Now, I said side. That doesn't mean that their strongest side is going, or their strongest weapon is going to be their strongest side. Like I said, if you have someone who has their tip down, okay, they're wanting you to expose something so they can do a quick thrust, stop your movement. Well, how do I do that? If you're center grip or a heater or anything like that with a shield, and you know that their right side is dominant, but their left side has the first striking ability, turn your shield sideways. Okay? Because they're expecting to try and strike that surface. Don't step in and expose. Bring your shield over a little bit, and you can just tilt your shield to make sure that the bottom part of the shield is covering that area, and then you can do a shuffle step forward. And now they're going to almost every single time take a step back because they have lost their plan of attack on you. So find their dominant side, attack that, but protect the most vulnerable area. So, like I said, if the person's right-handed and they're going to be attacking, but they bring their left side down because they're trying to strike, bring the shield over and step towards their sword shot. Their sword dominant side, their right side. Okay? Both up. Still go towards their dominant side. They might throw something over here. What I do at that point is I block with the sword because it's usually not going to be a very strong shot. Why? Because they're throwing with their non-dominant side and they're wanting to go forward. So therefore, they can't go forward because I'm going towards their dominant side. Sorry if this is getting very confusing. But all they got is this. And if I can, at that point, both swords are up. If they throw here, I block here. Correction. I step forward to their side, I block. They throw a shot, I step, and I follow their sword back, strike them in their non-dominant side. because they're going to throw, and then they're going to plan like this. And if you noticed, they threw, and then they're doing this, and they're not thinking about this side again. They had a plan, strike, do this. Dang it, they got me because I wasn't thinking about blocking that side. I was worried about striking. So there's a lot of tactics involved. And once you find out how a person usually fights, they pretty much get set in a certain style. Once you understand that style, you know how to protect against it. All right, I'm going to leave it there right now. Sorry for some of the very basic stuff and some very intensely confusing stuff. Like I said, it's you either love it or you hate it. And just try it. So, all right. I'll see you again next time. Hopefully the weather is not great, so we didn't go outside and do some pellet work, but as soon as the weather gets good, I'll be doing a class on some of the strikes and everything that I taught you guys already.